Hello everyone, welcome to Analog IAS Current Affair Analysis for 14th April 2020. In this video, we'll be discussing this couple of issues. The Ambedkar we don't know. This is about Dr. B.R. Ambedkar's contribution to the post-independent Indian institutions through the legacy of his works. So we are trying to understand not just his philosophy but also his contributions to various offices after we attained independence. So basically, today is Dr. B.R. Ambedkar Jayanti, and in this context, this article is written by the writer who happens to be a Union Minister of State for Parliamentary Affairs. So this article is trying to explain the various hats that Mr. B.R. Ambedkar has actually donned in building our country. So the first thing that we have to understand is Dr. B.R. Ambedkar's vision as a institution builder. One of his earliest contribution happens to be his seminal work, which has actually led towards the establishment of Reserve Bank of our country. So RBI was created upon the work that was actually carried out by Dr. B.R. Ambedkar, and he submitted it to Hilton Young Commission, based on which we have the Reserve Bank of India in its present form today. So Ambedkar's guidelines were actually captured in his work The Problem of Rupee, Its Origin and Its Solution. So this was the first work that he has done. Secondly, as a labor member, so he was a executive member in Viceroy's Executive Council as well from 1942 to 1946. So during this time, his contribution towards building institutions was with respect to various policies which correspond to water, power and labor welfare. So he was the person who was pioneer behind establishment of what we know today as the Central Water Commission. Back then, Central Waterways Irrigation and Navigation Commission was the name of the body. He also established the Central Technical Power Board and integrated water resource management through the establishment of river valley authorities. So the multi-purpose projects that we know today actually have the vision of Dr. B.R. Ambedkar behind them. Similarly, when we are talking about various other power projects like the Son River Valley project, Damodar River Valley project, and even the conception of the Interstate Water Dispute Act of 1956, all this had the stamp of authority of Dr. B.R. Ambedkar behind them and his vision. So he was also the voice for the suppressed classes, and welfare of labor was one of his prime concerns when he was actually even participating in the debate of the Roundtable Conference in London as well. So he championed this cause of labor, and it is in the 1937 session of Bombay Assembly. He was actually talking about abolishing the Khoti system of land tenure, which is very relevant in the Konkan area. This is yet another contribution of Dr. B.R. Ambedkar. So there were various other contributions as well in abolishing the serfdom of agricultural tenants. He also fought in the Bombay Assembly against the introduction of Industrial Disputes Bill in 1937 because it was not giving the power to carry out strikes for the labor. So all this made him a champion of the depressed classes. Apart from this, we also know his seminal work in being a member of the drafting committee of the Constitution, and his role was very central to the conception of our Constitution in its present form. So on this occasion of his Jayanti, the development of Panchtit is one initiative that the government of India has actually taken up. Now, what is this Panchtit? These are the places which are actually associated with the life of Dr. B.R. Ambedkar. We're talking about the Janmabhoomi, which is Mo in Madhya Pradesh, Shiksha Bhumi, which is the place where he studied, that is London, Chaitya Bhumi in Mumbai, Diksha Bhumi, where he carried out all his reforms, that is Nagpur, and finally Mahaparinirvan Bhumi is where he was laid to rest, that is Delhi. So these are the various steps that the government has been taking to carry forward the legacy of Dr. B.R. Ambedkar. So the vision laid down by Dr. B.R. Ambedkar, according to the writer, is also seen in various government schemes which are listed here. So these schemes will actually act as a tribute to the legacy of Dr. B.R. Ambedkar on his birthday. That is what this article is trying to say. GSAP 1.0, has RBI embarked on the path of quantitative easing? This is a very technical article and a very important one for prelims as well. So recently the government has introduced a program called GSAP. What does it stand for? What are the objectives? Let us try to understand. GSAP stands for Government Securities Acquisition Program. So as the name itself indicates, the government is trying to acquire G6. But why? That is the question. But to answer this question in a straightforward manner is a bit difficult, so let me give you a brief context. For this, you have to understand the concept of bond price and bond yield. So we have seen in a lot of articles in our previous videos as well, but let me explain the concept briefly. Whenever you are having a high yield, it generally means that you are getting a better return for the amount invested. Say for example, if the cost of a government bond or government security as it is called initially was 100 rupees. So you know that these bonds will be sold in the secondary markets. Someone has decided that he needs urgent cash and he has got enough interest from it and he doesn't want to hold the government bond anymore. He sells it in the secondary market. That means this bond, which was probably, say for example, it is somewhere around 6.5% interest. Now the same bond, if you are trying to sell it for 95 rupees, you are getting much more interest because the 5 rupees differential that you see here can be covered when you try to sell again the same bond for say 97 rupees. It will give you better returns. That way, whenever the prices of bonds fall, yield increases. Secondly, bond price will reduce because there is excess supply. Now, why is there excess supply at the present moment in the market is the question. We have seen that COVID crisis has brought down economic activity. Therefore, the demand for money has actually risen. States as well as the center has raised the fiscal deficit targets, and in order to monetize this deficit, the governments have been going for bonds. Now, when there is excess supply of bonds both from the states as well as the center, obviously there will be a lot of options available for investors. Therefore, bond prices for the long term ones are actually coming down. Now, why is this a concern? In the market, there are a lot of companies which actually link their interest rates and yields to the government securities. What happens when the yield increases is the bond price falls down. Whenever the bond price actually falls down, you have to understand that government securities are one of the most stable options available to us in the market. So when government security prices themselves are falling down, the confidence in the economy is actually coming down. So this confidence in the economy is actually coming down, and therefore the demand for new loans is actually coming down. So this is the problem, despite injecting liquidity into the system. Now this article is questioning whether this strategy of GSAP is actually similar to what we know as quantitative easing. Now this strategy of quantitative easing and GSAP both are basically open market operations which involve selling and buying of government securities. Similarly, we have seen other set of open market operations like liquidity adjustment facility or the operation twist or the targeted long-term repo operations. All these are open market operations. and the objective is very straightforward: to ensure macroeconomic stability. But the process in which this government security acquisition program is happening is a bit different from the modus operandi of all these methods. For that to understand, we have to understand what quantitative easing actually means. Let us go back to the 2008 2009 global financial crisis when the markets came to a halt. There was basically no demand. Demand slump was created. Now, with falling incomes in the times of COVID, we are also witnessing a demand slump across various economies and also in our country. Even before the COVID induced lockdown, the economy has been slowing down, with the quarterly growth rate standing somewhere between 4.5% to 5%, which was considered to be one of the lowest in a lot of decades. So, in the context of this slowdown, the problem here was not the absence of liquidity in the system, which is the case when you start quantitative easing. The difference between the 2008 financial crisis and the COVID induced crisis is there was supply crunch of currency. Here there is a demand crunch. That is, the COVID initially probably might have induced supply chain lockdowns, and there were supply constraints which led to increase in the prices of a few essential goods. But the basic problem of economy in the times of COVID is there is no demand. Now, this lack of demand is not because of lack of liquidity in the system, as you can see in the case of the 2008 2009 financial crisis. All the companies were bankrupt in 2008 crisis in America, all the major banking companies. So they didn't have enough cash. The objective of this quantitative easing was therefore to inject liquidity into the system. Now, this program of GSAP, the objective is not to induce liquidity into the system, but rather it is the exact opposite, to suck out the excess liquidity in the system. Now let us come back to the discussion pertaining bond yields. We have seen that because of the increase in fiscal deficit during COVID times, what is happening is there has been a excess of supply of government securities. So therefore, the prices of these government securities are falling down. And why is this a problem? Like I've told you, a lot of government market schemes are actually linked to these government securities. So if their yields fall down, the confidence in the economy falls down, and therefore even market falls down. So the economy will be under a slump. So in order to avoid this entire situation, the objective here is to take out the excess liquidity from the system and use it for government activities. What RBI on behalf of government will be doing through this GSAP program is that it will be buying government securities just like in a open market operation. Now similarly, quantitative easing, the basic funda of quantitative easing is, unlike this GSAP program, in the case of quantitative easing, both private companies and government securities were taken up by the central economy or the central banks in a country. Mostly this was taken up by advanced economies like US, Germany, etc., even during the COVID era. So that is an option we don't have, because the demand for these sort of bonds, say for example, if you're talking about a government security, then it is fine. But if you have to buy the shares of private companies during a uncertain time like COVID, how many people will be coming forward even if the government buys these private bonds and tries to sell them again in the secondary market? So quantitative easing as an option is not available for emerging economies like India. Therefore, quantitative easing is a strategy that happens over a long term. But this idea of GSAP is only restricted to government securities, and it is a short term measure. So the confusion whether quantitative easing and GSAP are similar is clearly delineated in this article, because it clearly explains why it is not a case of quantitative easing, because we cannot afford to have such kind of high interest rates in our economy. Therefore, this is not quantitative easing, and that is the gist of this article.